Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, January 31st, 2025. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker. I don't really want this month to end. It's been a great January. 3 football games in particular I can think of that I really liked this month. But as we bid farewell to January, I just hope all of you out there are still basking in the glow of the national title. Still basking. We're less than 2 weeks removed, and I certainly am. JBook, you still basking, my friend?
I'm on cloud nine, my friend. I am on cloud nine. And you know what's so cool? Seeing Ryan Day go on this media tour right now, and then just seeing the smile on his face, and it's so great with the program right now because you're seeing the players at the basketball game, the trophies going around everywhere. It's so awesome. Like right now, and it's just like, man, we really got a whole year to have the top bragging rights, Dave. It's beautiful.
I love it. Exactly. I mean, you know, I'm not going to get off my soapbox for a while. Just, we can care about the other stuff, but, just bask in the glow of the national championship and
Yeah.
rewatch all 4 games from the postseason. I highly recommend that. Go in chronological order or do whatever the hell you want to do. I recommend going in chronological order, and Big Ten 60 does a great job if you want to cut down on the time a little bit. If you want to watch the entire games, whatever you do, it's just exhilarating. All right. Defensive coordinator, a couple things here. What do you want to see happen with the defensive coordinator hiring, and what are you hearing is the most likely scenario, Jay Book? Did I lose you?
Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
All right, sorry about that. So the way things are trending right now, I mean, I think it's going to be a co-coordinator situation with Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton, and this is the reason why I believe that. Ryan Day said a couple weeks ago, right after the national championship game, is that this spring will look vastly different compared to years past for the single fact that these guys have had so many reps. The season was so long to be able to turn it around right now. You would definitely be behind schedule. So if you're trying to bring in a brand new defensive coordinator who's going to probably overhaul the system, he's not going to be able to fully implement a new system when you're going to be operating on limited spring reps. Because Jim Knowles' defense was so different, you're basically talking about, okay, we were speaking Japanese for 3 years. And if we bring in a brand new defensive coordinator, it's like switching the Japanese language to Spanish. And we're going to have to do a crash course on it with very limited reps. So I think if you keep Matt G and Tim Walton there, you're going to be able to keep a lot of the same principles, a lot of the same things. One thing that you're probably going to see, and they talked about it, even if Jim Knowles was going to be here next year, they were going to transition more into a multi-look defense. They didn't want to be a traditional 4 down front like they were this year. They want to be able to really start utilizing kind of a 3-3-3-4 type of situation when they really want to. I think Matt and Tim will be able to be creative together. Now, the one thing that you do have to worry about, when Jim Knowles was the defensive coordinator, he was kind of your overseer. He traveled everywhere, all across the field. He was in different meeting rooms. If you're a defensive coordinator, will Ryan Day have those guys still coaching position groups? Because that was the one mistake that they did with Kerry Combs. Kerry Combs was the DC and he was in charge of the defensive backs, which was way too much. I think they're going to bring in a new coach. Will it be the exciting thing about it is, will if they do go that route, will they bring in a new DB coach to actually just coach those positions, or do you start the transition with Larry Johnson, who only has 1 year left? I think they need to make a decision on Larry, or they're going to let Larry make that decision. Will he want to ride off in the sunset this year, and then you get you a heavy hitter there, and then you hire a safety coach, or do you go ahead and start that transition now, bring in a young up-and-comer like a Randall Joyner from Ole Miss or something like that, and then you say, hey, you and Larry are going to work together for 1 year, and then that whole D-line unit is going to be yours next year.
Are you sure if he stays one more year that'll be his last year, LJ? Because I keep thinking, probably one more year, and then that's a year, and then one more year.
Yeah,
He's for like 10 more years, isn't he?
I know it.
Hey, he's got 2 titles now under his belt as an Ohio State D-line coach. Not too shabby.
Yeah, I mean, Larry's going to go down into the College Football Hall of Fame potentially with this storied career here. 2 national championships, and he's been part of outstanding units. I mean, the job that he did down the stretch, you cannot give him credit. I mean, that defensive line unit was just playing out of their mind in the playoffs. Even in the Michigan game, they played outstanding. But yeah, I just think that they have a lot of things on the table. I mean, you can be the other side of the coin and say, hey, if you're willing to pay 2.75 to Knowles, why don't you go out and do a national search with that type of bag and go get yourself an established DC who's going to be able to get your defense, even though you may overhaul stuff, that he's confident that he's still going to have a top 10 defense here next year, because even though you lost a lot of people, there's still a significant amount of talent that's coming back on that defense. I still think this defense next year, they probably won't be number 1 in all categories, but I do think that they have the potential to be easily a top 10 defense with the pieces that are coming back.
No doubt about it. I'm concerned about depth here and there, like a D tackle, but I love the guys that are projected to be the starting D tackles with K-Mac and Edric Houston. But depth, hopefully a guy like Jason Moore can step up, and Will Smith Jr. and some of these guys. We're going to bounce around a lot on the show here today. I want to ask JBook now about running back situation for next year. Buckeyes are replacing, in my opinion, the best running back tandem that they've had in my lifetime. Now, I barely missed Archie and Pete. Archie Griffin and Pete Johnson have to be the best running back tandem ever at Ohio State. You know, Beanie and Pittman weren't too shabby. I say that sarcastically. They were really, really good. The Akron tandem there with Beanie and Pittman. We've had some other ones as well, but man, Quinshawn and Travion were just a heck of a 1-2 punch, losing both those guys. But I like James Peoples a lot. I like getting that big guy from West Virginia, C.J. Donaldson, and they're bringing in 3 freshmen. We know freshmen can play right away at running back. So I'm curious your thoughts on the running back room for 2025, JBook.
Yeah, obviously when you have 2 NFL guys, you just can't turn around and say, hey, they're going to be just as good as this group. But they are talented. I do think that West Virginia running back Donaldson coming in is an absolute load. I mean, 6'2", 238. The one thing I'm curious about with his size, I think they're going to have him on the Will Howard type of plan, to where, remember when Will Howard came in here about 240-ish, and once he got into the strength and conditioning program and the nutritionist, they were able to teach Will how to properly take care of his body. I wouldn't be surprised if Donaldson doesn't drop a little bit of that weight to add some explosiveness. But hey, James Peoples, he's ready. I think from all I'm hearing, he's ready to be the guy. I mean, when you look at James, though, James doesn't look like a typical true freshman. He looked like he's been in the Coach Mick strength and conditioning program for several years now. Go ahead.
I wish I would have exchanged. Now, hopefully the guy's listening to the show, because he says he watches the show, listens to the show. I'm walking through the Atlanta airport, and you know, a big guy dressed in Ohio State stuff about runs into me. Not runs into me. We about bump into each other. He was looking at his phone, and I'm like, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, man." And this is the type of guy, the size, that he doesn't have to say sorry about anything. And I was like, no problem, man. I'm like, go Bucks. And he turned around. He's like, wait. He's like, I watched your guys' show all the time. And then he introduced himself, and he's James Peoples' like basically private trainer.
Oh, really?
Hopefully this guy, if you're watching, I'm sorry that we didn't like exchange it. I should have got your number. So look me up but yeah. And this guy looks like he knows his way around the weight room. This guy that I bumped into, this gentleman. And so I was like, yeah, I hear you guys say nice things about James. We really appreciate that. So yeah, man, I can see why James is ready to roll. He's got Mickey Marotti in one corner. He's got this big guy in the other corner. I mean, you have no choice but to be rocked up.
Yeah, I feel really good about your 1-2 punch there. The other freshman, I think you're going to need at least get one
Yeah.
One of those freshmen ready to go. Turbo Rogers doesn't get onto campus until June, so he's going to be a little behind schedule there. And with Turbo Rogers, I don't think when you look at his size, I'm not sure he's going to be ready to play in a Big Ten type of schedule until he kind of gets a little bigger. But the other kids, they're on campus, so they're going to be able to get themselves ready to go for spring ball, modified spring ball, if that's what they're going to be doing. But yeah, the running back situation, the good news is I am a huge fan of Carlos Loughlin.
Yeah.
I think the world of him, and I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to have those guys ready. The Lock Boys, he likes to call them.
Ooh, I
And
like that.
I listened to last Sunday. I listened to a podcast with him for about 45 minutes, and it was so weird because it was actually an Arkansas podcast, like insiders from like Arkansas, but some reason they had Lachlan on there, and it just came up on my feed, and I was like, huh. And I was like, let me listen, let me check this out. And it was so cool. Like, I love the fact that Carlos said, hey, we're going to the SEC and we're going to be bringing more of that Southern talent up north. He goes, I'm a Southern guy. I'm from SEC country. And my sole mission is I'm going to high school down south just to pick some fights. And I love the way that mind frame is. He was like, hey, we're going to go into this off season with the running backs that we have, and I'm going to make sure that they're fundamentally sound. And the one thing that you really saw from the running backs, the biggest difference is, my goodness, the pass blocking and the unselfishness that you saw from those running backs when they didn't have the football was incredible. I mean, Trey and Junkins, they made a lot of money for themselves under the tutelage of Lachlan as far as stepping their game up when it comes to pass blocking. And Tom Shea actually said yesterday at the Senior Bowl that he's been talking to a lot of general managers and scouts, and Travion Henderson name is buzzing in the NFL circles to the point now that some people believe Henderson might not get out of the first round.
Wow.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and here's their reasoning is because he got so good at pass blocking this year under Lachlan that in the NFL eyes, they see Trey as a guy who's just now starting to peak as far as his ability to play the running back position. But more importantly, they don't think you have to take him off the field because of his pass blocking. They now view Henderson as a 3-down back because of the way he was just stoning people in some of his clips. He showed a lot of the pass blocking, just crippling blocks that he had against Penn State, against Notre Dame, along the way on the journey. And then you add on to the fact that he's actually a home run hitter. So I'm thinking to myself, I was like, if you're Lachlan and you're going down south and you're picking all of these fights, and you probably going to have your running backs go in the maybe first and second round, like that is a rarity in college football. And on top of that, you got that national championship ring on your finger. And then they asked Lachlan, they was like, what's it like recruiting for, like, when you go into the block O on your chest and you're Ohio State, like, what's that like? And he goes, and he kind of smiled and he goes, kind of recruits for herself as far as the position, because he said the brand of Ohio State is so strong, especially in the deep South, that the brand kind of recruits itself. He needs to, like, make no mistake, you got to work hard. You're going to be going against other elite recruiters, and you got to work your tail off. He was like, but you go into the high schools and they hear Ohio State's in their house. It kind of creates a buzz there. And I thought that was really cool. So circling back, Coach Lachlan, he's going to get those boys ready. I have no doubt in my mind he's going to have that running back group ready to go.
When he's on the recruiting trail, JBook, I don't think it hurts the cause that when he walks into these homes that he's the strongest man. And it's walking in, the dad's probably pretty freaking strong. The son obviously is. He's recruiting some big, strong running backs. He's also recruiting some smallish guys that are just super fast. I love what he's doing. And he just, He's probably the strongest guy in the weight room. It's because he's just all muscle. He's just a rock. That's it.
But here's the funny thing, Dave, is if you follow like kind of Lachlan and stuff on social media, all of the visits that he's been taking a picture with all of the running backs. I don't know if he's changed his recruiting philosophy in regards to the body types of some of these running backs, but good Lord, some of these kids are 2026, 2027, and they're bigger than him. And I'm like, and Lachlan's a big dude. Like the number one running back, Savion Hitter, like he took a picture with Lachlan, and this kid was just absolutely yoked up, like just swollen. And that's the same thing with like 3 or 4 of these prospects, and you look at them and they make Lachlan look small, and I'm like, what are they feeding these kids? I'm like,
I thought you meant, go ahead. Sorry.
I would say these kids are 16, 17 years old, and they got their arm around Coach Lachlan, and Coach Lachlan is a big dude himself, and they're making him look small. I'm like, they must be changing like the body type of running backs that they're trying to recruit to Ohio State, because these are some huge running backs nowadays.
Getting CJ Donaldson as their one guy from the portal says a lot to me. That they get that's the biggest running back Ohio State's going to have since Beanie Wells. He's bigger than Carlos Hyde, kind of in between where Beanie was his final year and where Carlos was his final year. Beanie about 240, maybe he's about 250. I don't know, around 240. Carlos about 235, and CJ's right about 238. Yeah, you're right. When you first said these guys are like bigger than him, I'm like, you mean that they're like, because they're taller than him, because Carlos isn't very tall, you know, he's low center of gravity. You mean that they're like bigger than him, like, and like they're like as yoked up as him? Like, geez, that's hard to do. That's hard to do.
But it just kind of tells you, just observing from afar, the body type that they're recruiting these are big running backs. And it's fascinating because you also bring in a Turbo Rogers, who's not very big, but he's very shifty, who's going to be able to play a little bit of running back and slot receiver, kind of that hybrid type of role. I just think they're in the business of acquiring as much talent as possible. And the fact that you got a running back coach with a mentality that said, I'm going down south to pick some fights for my Buckeyes.
I love it, man.
Before we move on with Lachlan, he did say one other thing that I thought was extremely impressive. And he said, you know what? I don't really have any personal goals for myself. He goes, I look back, he goes, 4 years ago, I wasn't even an on-the-field coach. And here I am, you know, I was working 2 jobs as a correction officer and working at Memphis until they brought me on to Oregon and stuff. And he goes, I'm proud that I made it to this level at the upper echelon at a place like Ohio State. He's like, but my goals are to protect Ryan Day, because he had such high praise of Ryan Day. He's saying working for Coach Day is awesome. And the reason it's so cool to work for Coach Day is because he allows his coaches to be themselves and have their personality. And he couldn't be more supportive of me. And I thought that was very cool that he said, my goal is to have Coach Day's back to make sure he's very successful. And my second goal is to get my guys in my room to the NFL so that they can accomplish their dreams. Those are my 2 things. And when you have a guy as a position coach that's ready to run through a brick wall for not only his head coach, but his guys in his room, that's a selfless attitude that will rub off. And he also said, and I can't stop raving about this guy, because he also said that sitting in the meeting room with the offensive coaches, he said, I feel like I'm a kid in school. Like I'm in there with my notepad. And he goes, I can say it's like when you go and watch a famous painter who has a blank canvas, watching Chip Kelly with the run game, mirroring that with Ryan Day in the pass game. He goes, it's like an artist with a blank canvas. He's like, when you go in there, he goes, the brain of these guys, when they're bouncing ideas off of each other, he said, I'm just sitting down writing the whole time. Like my mind is blown, like, oh, so that would be, that covers this. Oh, if they come out in this, we can check to this, check to that. He goes, I've never been in a situation to where I'm just like in awe whenever those 2 get going in front of the room. He's like, I'm a kid in the class right now, just smiling. Like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm at Ohio State watching these guys put together a masterpiece that orchestrated a championship type of run.
I love that story. That's great stuff right there. He really is a great man. I had a chance to talk to him a little bit at Media Day down in Atlanta, just one-on-one real quick. I didn't interview him because Pat Murphy from our site already interviewed him. In fact, I went up to Carlos and I said, I'm not going to bug you with an interview. One of my colleagues already interviewed you. I just wanted to talk to you for a couple minutes. He's a great man. I'm glad you passed along that story. That's fantastic. I'll have to watch that interview. Yeah, how random he was on, as you mentioned, like of all places, on some Arkansas podcast. Hey, when you're national champs, this is what happens. Your running back coach is going to be on some random Arkansas Razorback podcast. Whatever works. Okay, two main topics I want to get JBook's thoughts on before I get him out of here, and that's, what does he expect from Julian Sayin next year? I can put it this year, and is Michigan going to get hammered, or we think if they're going to get slapped on the wrist, or maybe somewhere in between? Before we do that, I'll let you guys know about cornbread hemp and a great deal you guys can get. In 2024, it was reported that more people now use THC than drink daily. More people are rethinking their relationship with alcohol, looking to drink less but still have fun. Cornbread's organic THC gummies offer a better way to hang out, celebrate, or relax without the hangover. These are America's only USDA-approved organic THC gummies. Real THC, no synthetics, 100% legal hemp, fast and free shipping. Alcohol doesn't have to be the default anymore, whether you're doing dry January or just looking for a healthier way to relax and have a guilt-free good time. You've got to try Cornbread's THC gummies. Right now, Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, 30% off, cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use code Bucknuts at checkout. All right, Julian Sayin, what are your expectations for him, presuming he is, and that's not a wild presumption on my part, presuming he is the starter, what do you expect from number 10?
I think he's going to be a primetime player. That's the expectations. And there's two trains of thoughts here, Dave. I am a strong believer that the players, they recognize game. Okay. So when you talk to these players and they mention certain kids and they rave about them and they talk about some of their qualities that really makes them stands out, you should listen, because usually those kids are typically right. Will Howard, I think it was this week, and he was asked about Julian Sayin. Will Howard raved about how the ball jumps out of his hand. He goes, this kid can spin it, can absolutely spin the rock. And he will say he has a really bright future. The one thing that Julian was able to do is just kind of sit back, take everything in. He mentioned how smart he is being able to pick up a lot of the stuff. So I thought it was really good that Julian was able to kind of sit back and see how a professional, and I would call Will Howard, because I thought the way Will Howard handled himself since the time that he arrived in Columbus was very, very professional. I think he put on a master class on how a quarterback in Columbus should handle not only the media, but also how he handles himself on the field. Like, sometimes you're going to make mistakes, but you got to have a short memory. And if you do make mistakes, hey, go to that podium with your chin up, look those cameras in the eye, and own it. And that's what Will Howard was able to do. Now, was saying he definitely needs to have a big winner as far as getting bigger and stronger in the weight room, because you want him. The questions are, can he be durable enough throughout the year if he's taking some big time hits, because he is a little smaller in stature. But the other aspect of it is, they didn't go and try to bring in a quarterback in the portal. And so that tells, and they were okay with Devin Smith, the quarterback, heading over to Cal. Okay. So they're okay with that. So that lets me know that, hey, we believe in Julian. We think that he's going to be the guy. He has all of the weapons at his disposal. He's going to have the best wide receiver room in all of college football. You're bringing over I think his second or third team all Big Ten tight end from Purdue. You're probably going to have a better offensive line than you had this year. I think they're going to have a better offensive line, because you're bringing in two true tackles. The left tackle coming over for Rice. A lot of people believe that if he would have went into the NFL draft, would have been a second-round pick. You were able to bring him in, so he's probably going to work his way into the first round next year if he has a good year. So I think Julian, he's set up to have an awesome year. It's just going to be up to him. Can he put in that extra work in the strength and conditioning program this offseason?
All right. I wasn't going to bring it up, but the people want to know about. No, I was going to bring it up anyway. Gary on YouTube, do you think the NCAA will really hammer that school up north?
I don't have faith in the NCAA. I don't know about you, Dad. I personally think they should, because I think that when you have 6 level 1 violations and there was clear evidence that everybody, well, not everybody, I would say multiple coaches knew about this, because you remember when it was first went out there, Michigan faithful tried to say, oh, this was a rogue Connor Stallions. Nobody knew about it. He was operating this whole scheme all by himself. Well, come to find out, a lot of people actually knew about it. So I personally think that they should, but I don't know how much power the NCAA has nowadays, because it seems like any type of battle that they go up against, they end up losing it. Now, will Michigan take them to court? Who knows? But the one thing that I find fascinating is I was listening to John Jansen, who is one of their cover guys, and I think he also does the Michigan radio. Mm-hmm. He said, hey, this thing he was highly upset at Connor Stallions, and he was slamming the Michigan faithful who worships this guy as a cult hero. And John Jansen said, this tainted what they've done as far as a program. This national championship will always have some type of taint to it, and there will be people who question this. To me, that puts a smile to my face that one of their own are saying this was a tainted national championship. And I don't understand why people are worshiping this guy who helped put that stain on otherwise a tremendous run by Jim Harbaugh and his staff. Now, to me, the other aspect of it is the Michigan faithful who sicked their dogs on Ryan Day's brother, a man who had nothing to do with it. Here you go, Dave. You had a guy minding his own business, going about his day at work, and then next thing you know, you start getting death threats from Michigan people, and he probably had no idea what was going on. All the while, you had the Michigan beat peddling a fake story, and come to find out, they have known it's been a fake story for some time, but they didn't have enough decency to, hey, let's retract that so that our crazies can stop threatening innocent people who had zero to do with this. And I listened to the Yahoo podcast with Ross Dillinger, and I guess the guy who initially tipped off the other staff, they saying that he's now getting death threats.
Oh, they know who it is? Michigan's trying to find out who it is.
Yeah.
It was somebody at Michigan. That's the funniest thing, is like they blamed Ryan Day's brother and brought all that up, like you're saying, like made all that crap up. Turns out the call was coming from inside the house.
Yeah.
That it's just, I mean, and then in their response to the NCAA, it was like such a childish, it was like something you would expect from like an 8-year-old. Well, we didn't do it. Yeah, you did. We caught you. All right, we did it, but it didn't really matter. Well, and none of the other coaches except for Stallions knew. Okay, they knew, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It's like, this is just 8-year-old logic. Yeah, I think probably what's going to happen is they're not going to get a slap on the wrist. They're not going to get hammered. They're not going to get the title strip, because they can't. The NCAA can't even do that. The CFP would have to do that. Right. I do think something's going to happen. I don't know what. I kind of err on what you're saying. I really trust the NCAA, and even if the NCAA really does want to stick it to them, do they really have the teeth to do it? Would that hold up in court? I don't know, but I think it's going to be something more than a slap on the wrist, but something less than the hammer coming down. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those situations to where if this was probably 10 years ago, then we will all be sitting back and saying, oh, this is going to be big time as far as like a hammer coming. But I think the fact that they've been embarrassed as far as a program, nobody outside of their own crazy fan base respects the way that they got there, because they did have to cheat to actually get to that position starting in 2022. And it's hilarious because you go to the Michigan boards and they were absolutely flabbergasted that this wasn't Ryan Day and his brother's PI firm who turned him in. They were just like, what do you mean? our beat writers have said it was them the whole time. Well, I can't believe that the call came from inside the house. And everybody with a brain knew that this wasn't Ohio State. I mean, I think it was like November 6th of 2023. The NCAA came out and said, Ohio State didn't have anything to do with this. What are you guys talking about? But they still continue to peddle that fake story to get those clicks.
Oh man, it's seriously. I mean, some of the stuff that was just absolutely made up about Ryan Day and his family. And I look at Ryan Day now, as you mentioned. He's going on the Tonight Show, going on Kelly Clarkson, making the round. I'm so happy for him and his family. Happy for, as I've said this before, I'm happy for everybody. I'm happy for all of you. I'm happy for you, JBook. I'm happy for everybody who considers himself a Buckeye. I'm happiest for Ryan Day. He's a legit good man.
What a week for him, Dave. He brings home the gold national championship trophy to Columbus, and he also beat the RICO charges from the Michigan faithful.
I love ending the show on a high note. Great stuff. And on a great joke. That's the closer right there. Hey, great stuff as always. No surprise. You're always coming strong on a Friday. He is Mr. Jonah Booker. Thank you, JBook. I appreciate it. And
all right. Talk to you next week, my friend.
Yeah, buddy. I'll see you next week, man. I appreciate you very much. He is JBook, and appreciate all of you. We appreciate you guys tuning into the show very much. Really appreciate the live audience, everybody listening to the podcast only version. Our audience continues to grow, and we can't thank you guys enough. Helps when you win a national championship too. So thanks again to JBook, and thanks to all of you. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend. Go Bucks.